All right, ladies and gentlemen, I will call the City Council meeting of Monday, March 22nd, 2013 to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Council President Pro Tem Leitner. Councilmember Faulkner. Councilmember Kersey. Councilmember Zapp. Councilmember Sherman. Councilmember Alvarez. Councilmember Emerald. Council President Gloria.
Here. I'd ask everyone to please rise for an invocation by our City Clerk, Liz Malin, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Mark Kersey.
Grant those who hold office in this city the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in the offices to promote the well-being of all people.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Terrific. We'll start this afternoon by asking if there's any mayor, city council, independent budget analyst, city attorney, or city clerk comment at this time. Ms. Emerald.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I just wanted to send thanks out to everybody who volunteered this weekend in City Heights at our job fair. We had about 2,000 jobs available for young people and several hundred young people from 16 to age 24 coming in, applying online on the spot. And I feel very confident that many of our youth who are in need of work and need of productive activity will have good summer jobs and perhaps the beginnings of careers because of it. So thanks to everybody in City Heights, our own staff member Chris Pearson for all the work he put in, and the City Heights Business Association. Everybody came together. It was an excellent event.
That's outstanding, Ms. Emerald. Thank you for sharing that. And let's do a shameless plug here for Ms. Leitner's pet project of Connect to Careers. What's that website again, Ms. Leitner? Is that...
I will have to get back to you with that. If you know it,
I
for
think
sure
it's connecttocareersSD.org.
Yes.
With two, not the number, not the letters. But that's a part of our Summer Youth Employment Initiative that Ms. Leitner's leading up, that Ms. Emerald was working on this weekend, and all of it adding up to hopefully keeping our young people occupied this summer.
Right. And just one more thing involving young people. At 7:30 Saturday morning, I joined about 200 students from San Diego State University on the deck of the Midway. And we exercised to raise money for wounded warriors and rehabbing their homes so that they are more ADA accessible. So here's kudos out to all of those young college students who were probably hadn't even gone to bed that night and were exercising and raising money for a great cause.
Terrific. Very good. Is there any other comment at this time? If there's not, we'll proceed to our discussion agenda. Clerk, would you please introduce item 200?
Yes, item 200, discussion of a draft medical marijuana ordinance and enforcement issues regarding medical marijuana. Kelly Broughton, Department Director of Development Services here, as well as Dan Normandin, Senior Planner, Development Services Department. We have a number of speakers, both in favor and in opposition.
Terrific. Well, ladies and gentlemen, at the request of our mayor, we have docketed today's discussion item regarding medical marijuana. And the mayor has asked us to listen to everyone's input and then to provide staff with direction on how to proceed with drafting the ordinance. I just want to be clear that the draft ordinance as proposed by the mayor cannot be acted upon today. I think most of you know that. But per the mayor's request, we will have input and direction on what we'd like to see in an ordinance and how an ordinance would be shaped by our neighborhoods. So with that, as was mentioned, we have our wonderful staff that are here, and I believe our mayor will be joining us perhaps at some time, which of course will afford him the courtesy of an opportunity to address the council and the public when he does arrive. But in the meantime, Mr. Broughton, would you like to start the presentation?
I'll start it with Dan Normandin.
How much time do you need, sir? You've got it.
Okay, first, over here, this works better. First, a little background. In October 2009, the City Council established the Medical Marijuana Task Force. In March 2010, the Land Use and Housing Committee directed the City Attorney's Office to prepare a land use and a health and sanitation ordinance based on the task force recommendations. On March 2011, the City Council adopted the ordinances. In September 2011, the City Council repealed the land use ordinance. In January of this year, Mayor Filner made a commitment to drafting new ordinances. The ordinance will be drafted based on the following principles. Allow patients with...
Dan, can I interrupt you just for a moment? I'm getting signals from the back of the room. They can't quite hear you. I know you don't have the best mic in the world there. We don't need a new City Hall, though. Don't get crazy. No, actually we do. But if you could just speak a little closer and we'll hold your time.
The ordinance will be drafted based on the following principles. Allow patients with a proper physician's recommendation access for the compassionate use of medical marijuana. Allow limited competition in permissible zones to provide patients access to the strain that best relieves their symptoms and improves their quality of life. Prevent dispensaries from encroaching into residential neighborhoods. Promote legal and responsible business practice among dispensary operators. Protect children from unprescribed use. And protect public safety. The land use ordinance requires a neighborhood use permit, process 2, with a 5-year expiration date. A 600-foot separation between the property line of a dispensary and the property line of a school, a public park, child care facilities, playgrounds, and other dispensaries. Also, no dispensary shall be located on a premises or a property that also has a residence on that property. There will be a restriction on the on-site medical consultation. Security components will be required, including security cameras, state licensed security guards, and lighting requirements for the interior and surrounding areas. Signage that allows for the name of the business only and restricts the sign to no more than 2 colors and includes the operator's name and contact information. The ordinance limits the operating hours to 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week. The current health and sanitation regulations address the topics of a criminal background check, verification of documenting transactions, including those that involve money, contributions, and compensation, the requirement that cooperatives operate as not-for-profit, age limitations that prohibit employment of anyone under the age of 18, and limits access to a cooperative to those under 18 only if they are a qualified patient and accompanied by a parent, a legal guardian, or a primary caregiver that is over the age of 18. Products are required to be packaged and labeled to provide specified information, including patient information, and a restriction that the product cannot be transferred to a non-patient. There is a requirement to post patient advisory in the cooperative, and a restriction on smoking in public places. This is a list of the zones that are currently proposed to allow dispensaries. They include some of the city's citywide commercials and industrial zones and a limited number of commercial zones found in planned district ordinances. This is a side-by-side comparison of the zones permitted in dispensaries in the 2011 ordinance and those currently in the discussion draft for 2013. This concludes staff presentation. Staff is requesting direction on the land use ordinance, the health and sanitation ordinance, and the proposed fee and excise tax on wholesale acquisition.
Thank you, sir. Just for the public's benefit, I think you heard the city clerk mention that we have a lot of speakers. So in terms of sequences, we are going to turn to our IBA for some comments. Then we'll go to you all for as long as it takes to get everyone through. And then we'll go to the council to comment and hopefully provide some direction. Because we have a lot of speakers, I think you were shared with this earlier, we're going to do about a minute a person. I'll work with you if you need a bit more time than that. But in order to, at our current rate, that has over 2 hours of public testimony at a minute a person. And we're getting more slips every moment. So I want to let you know that in advance. So again, we'll start with the IBA, then we'll turn to all of you. We'll do 30 minutes of speakers on either side, so in favor and then against, and then in favor and against until we've gotten through everybody. And then again, we'll turn to the council. So just for all the uninitiated, so you know how we're handling things this afternoon. So Ms. Nickelberry, how much time do you need?
Around 3 minutes or so.
You got it.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President Todd Gloria and members of the City Council. The IBA has reviewed the current draft staff proposal for a future medical marijuana ordinance and would like to make a few comments regarding it. It is our understanding that it has not been determined whether or not the proposed annual permit fee of $5,000 is cost recoverable. This fee would be separate from the payment of a $5,000 deposit by an applicant to attain a neighborhood use permit, which is not discussed in the staff report. The fees that would be charged against this deposit for staff time would be cost recoverable. Staff has communicated that the proposed 2% excise tax is intended for regulatory cost recovery as well. Legal determinations must be made regarding whether or not a 2% excise tax would require a public vote. Irrespective of this, a cost recovery fee structure could be accomplished without the implementation of an excise tax. For example, a fee can be tiered to require a higher fee for larger dispensaries given the additional regulatory oversight that may be required for larger establishments. Determining an appropriate cost recovery fee can only be accomplished after identifying which departments will enforce the provisions of the ordinance and how they will be enforced. It is our office's understanding that at this time, such determinations have not been made, and the staff is seeking direction in this regard. Where an appropriate fee structure does not already exist, the identified city departments will need to conduct a fee study to assign costs to their required administrative and/or regulatory duties based on the specific personnel or non-personnel costs particular to each. Past reports released by the IBA, including Report 1120, evaluated the regulations in the land use and public safety ordinances previously adopted by Council and identified appropriate departmental jurisdictions within the city that would undertake the administrative and regulatory oversight. Our review determined that there are existing regulatory structures within the Department of Development Services, the Police Department, and the Treasurer's Office that are appropriate to address the recommended regulatory actions. For example, the regulatory structure existent within the Police Department's Permits and Licensing Unit for police-regulated businesses is appropriate for implementing a number of the regulations and enforcements outlined in the Public Safety Ordinance. Regulatory enforcement could also involve the Neighborhood Code Compliance Division within the Development Services Department. For both the Police Department and DSD regulatory processes, the Treasurer's Office may have an integral role as a typical first point of contact with the application process for a permit to operate within the city. The IBA would also like to note that within the San Diego Municipal Code, there is specific language exempting certain nonprofit organizations from being required to pay business taxes and police permit fees. This language may need to be modified for consistency with a new ordinance. That concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to address any questions that you may have.
You were right on time, Ms. Nickelberry. That's perfect. Thank you. So we'll turn now to members of the public, and as the city clerk, Ms. Burdick? Oh, he is right behind you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by our mayor, Bob Filner. Mayor?
Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Mayor. Sorry to put you right on the spot as you walk in, but the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Council, for having this special meeting. I think it's a pretty important meeting, and we thank you for doing that. Let me first put what I'm suggesting in context, both history and then of your previous discussions. Most of you were on the Council where you went through this, I guess, 2 years ago, and so you have a base of understanding that we'll work off, I think. As you know, the people of the state of California passed a referendum which made legal, at least in the state of California, medical access, access to medical marijuana. The city of San Diego had never passed an ordinance which would implement that, and I think that's way past due. Of course, if that were easy, we would have done it a lot earlier. It's not an easy issue. It's not an easy issue. And I think what the Council has wrestled with and what I have wrestled with and what you will continue, and hopefully to pass something, a balance. A balance on the one hand between a humanitarian concern for people who are suffering from pain and chronic illness, who their doctors have prescribed medical marijuana. And I know many of you and I have talked to hundreds of patients where this is the one drug that has helped them. And I think we have an obligation to provide access on just that humanitarian impulse, the humanitarian need for access to medical marijuana. On the other hand, we know that there are neighborhoods, every one of our neighborhoods, every one of our parents is concerned about the ill effects of establishing access to legal marijuana. And that is concern for their neighborhoods, concern for their children. And we have to try to balance those two. I mean, it's not an easy balance. So on the one hand, we would like to provide access. On the other hand, we don't want to impose on neighborhoods, and we certainly don't want to endanger our children. And that's the aim I think we might all share to, to various degrees of where we put that emphasis on. So taking it from, I think I would like to take it, Mr. President, from the former ordinance and make some comparisons between my suggestions and that. Because I think what I've tried to do in my suggestions is to both widen access and increase protections for neighborhoods and children. I've tried to do both, raise standards for both. On the one hand, the zoning suggestions widen the access. That is, we've gone, I think, from industrial only to industrial and commercial. That, by definition, would widen the access. On the other hand, we have put more protections on for neighborhoods. Let me just give a few. Number one, we have, of course, made distance requirements between schools and playgrounds, places where our children would gather. There are distance requirements that no dispensary can be within 600 feet of that. They cannot be within 600 feet of each other. So there's no concentration of such dispensaries. So we've made, I think, some attempt to make sure that the children and neighborhoods have less of an impact than if we didn't have those, certainly, if those restrictions. We have suggested a permit fee that would make it, I think, a little bit more difficult for establishments we might not have as equal confidence in, and that permit fee and the suggested unlike the previous one. The registration of every individual at the Department of Health of the county to get a registration card that they will go through the Department of Health with the doctor's recommendation, and that will be in a state registry, which no dispensary could distribute unless somebody was registered in that registry, and which their card they have to personally get at the Department of Health. So those are the kinds of things we have, I think, added to be a tougher kind of restrictions that will give neighborhoods, I think, some sense of security that we are protecting them and their children, because I think we all want to do that. This was so those are my suggestions. We've as I said, try to both increase the access for those who are suffering, but increase the protections for those who we know need them, mainly our children and the quality of life in our neighborhoods. So I think I'm going to stop there and answer any questions or be available certainly after the public testifies, unless there are any specific questions right now, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Council President.
Council President, you're the mayor.
I might make, no, I won't make any comment.
No, we'll both refrain. I don't see any council members at this time, but we will hear from the public and appreciate you being here.
Again, I appreciate your time and efforts at this meeting. It's a debate worthy of having. It's an important one. Everyone's of goodwill here, and we can modify it to take into account, any of the as we try to struggle with this balance that is hard to reach. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's now your turn. As I mentioned, we're going to limit folks to about a minute apiece, and we are well in advance of 2 hours of public testimony. So we're going to try and go through this as expeditiously as possible. We'll do about 30 minutes for those opposed and then those in support, back and forth until we get it all done. You'll see that we have seats open here in the front row. They have the little yellow tags on them. When the clerk calls your name, if you can come forward and be ready, that'll help us get through the process quicker. And we have the microphone the mayor was speaking from. You're welcome to speak there. If you're a little shorter or if you're not able to stand, we have one that's lower. You'll notice there's a little box right there. It'll have a clicking time on there. It'll tell you when your time is up. You'll hear a chime. That means I'll need you to wrap it up. And so with those introductory comments, the only other thing I would mention to you all is that I recognize that we've done this a couple times before, and in my experience, most of the public comments sort of revolve around the validity of medical marijuana. And I want to let you know that we wouldn't docket this item if there wasn't, almost to a member on this council, a belief that marijuana does provide relief to people who are sick. That is why this item is here. This item was settled in 1996 by the voters of California with 55% of the vote, so it is now state law. What we're asking is how do we implement that? And so to the extent that you can focus your public comments on the mayor's proposal, whether you like it or not, what changes you'd want to make or you wouldn't. For example, when Mr. Norman was speaking before, he was talking about a 600-foot limit from, say, schools. Well, maybe you think that's too far, and you want to say, I think 300 is better. Or maybe you think that's not far enough, and you think 1,000. That's the kind of input the council and city staff are looking for today. Not about necessarily the merits of medical marijuana, although this is America and you can say what you want. But what I really want you to help is provide us with the input that you think is necessary to give you safe access, while at the same time, as the mayor is saying, balance that with our neighborhood. So with those comments, that will help us do a better job of being policymakers here today. Mr. Mayor, you had something
I'm sorry,
else?
Mr. Gloria. May I just take one more minute?
You may.
One other concern, of course, that we have to consider, although I don't think the council has to worry about it at this point. Clearly, both the referendum and the ordinances that various cities have had has been supposedly in conflict with federal law. And that's an issue, obviously, we're going to have to deal with. I think, let me say two things about that. Number one, federal law can change. I introduced legislation when I was a member of Congress to exempt the 15 or 18 states that, like California, have made medical marijuana legal and would exempt those from any enforcement. So there are those kinds of bills in the legislature that can move forward. In addition, I mean, I have talked personally and will continue with members of his staff, with Eric Holder, the Department of Justice, our Attorney General, to say, you know, maybe they don't have to enforce that law given our state law with the same, what shall I say, intensity that they have in the past. And that's being discussed in the administration. So I think your council has to do what they think is right, and then we will have to deal with the way the federal government is. But it's not a fixed thing. Those are changeable, both informally through the Attorney General or formally through legislation. And I think this state and our city should make a statement that also affects Congress and the administration. That is, if they hear from us that we want to do this, they may not have the same concerns that, you know, as they have for a nation as a whole. So I think we have to act regardless of what the federal law says, but we have to then deal with that in the future, obviously. Thank you.
Thank you.